Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Louise Savage of Louise Savage Muses. Welcome back if you've visited before, and a very warm welcome if you haven't, if you're new to this fantastic rambling that I do. I call it
fantastic rambling. Check you out.
What I meant was deviation. Anyway, never mind.
It's the fact you called it fantastic. I enjoyed.
No,
welcome to my fantastic rambling.
Well, what I meant was I should be musing. I'm actually fantastic at rambling. I don't think there's any musing going on. So I have with me the marvellous Simon Savage, my son. She says with great pride, and we have got together partly because we're on a
road trip,
a bookshop road trip or book trip.
Which you'll see on both of our channels in June.
In June.
On Independent Bookshop Week.
Indeed. And we've been having an absolutely amazing time up here in North Yorkshire. So we are not at home, which is why the set...
Well, let's be honest, this tablecloth is unforgivable.
Yes, I don't think either of us would have chosen it, but never mind. And we have this fantastic tower of books, which is the Women's Prize long list, dividing and separating us, or will it?
For now.
Bring us closer together. We don't know yet. So we're really excited because we have absolutely no idea, obviously, what the shortlist is going to be. We've read all the books now, and we are about to reveal whether a book has made our own personal shortlist or not. But before we do, Simon, have you got any sort of feelings about the long list overall?
I did just want to say, we normally do it where we stick post-it notes on the back of a copy of the book each. Because we're travelling, we haven't done that. So that's why my hand is firmly here, because it's covering up my post-it notes. My thoughts are, it's one of my favourite long lists in quite a while. Yeah. It was quite hard to pick the 6. Particularly, actually, I would say 7 or 8 could have made it onto a shortlist if it was allowed to be that long a shortlist. I think some of the themes in the books has struck me quite a bit.
Yeah, I would agree. Certainly since we've been vlogging, since I've been joining you vlogging about it, I think this is the strongest long list that there's been for me personally. It strikes me that it's really political. You know, I felt that there were a lot of really hard-hitting political themes, and that really warms my heart, actually. I think women are perhaps getting more and more brave.
I do think that... No, I think that also I don't think I've read a long list that has so much violence towards women in it before, which I found quite shocking, that was quite a big thing. And I will say this, for me, one of my favourite long lists, I think, was 2020 or 2019, or possibly 2021, I can't remember.
He doesn't know.
Last year I had a blip with it. This for me is back on form, and it's definitely in my top 3 long lists ever. Yeah.
So we have, it's been really difficult over the last few months because we absolutely have not discussed any of these books. Oh, except for,
two exceptions.
There are 2 exceptions.
One is that at my Patreon book club, Mum joined us to talk about Pod.
I did.
So we have rough ideas of what the other one feels about that. And also, you may have seen on Mum's channel that we have done the first of our sort of video diary reading vlogs, buddy reads. You called it parallel reading, which I really, really liked, which is of Black Butterfly. So we kind of know how I feel about that. We've got one more coming of
the Bandit Queens
and Demon Copperhead. And what we wanted to do is, whether they're shortlisted or not, because we don't know, have that content, because we realise we don't always have content.
And we've recorded it separately, so we haven't seen each other's content on those books either. So I have no idea what Simon thinks of Bandit Queens or Demon Copperhead, and
I don't have any idea.
Vice versa. So you know, we've been buzzing all day because we've been knowing that we're going to do this, but
we've also been together for 48 hours and barely been able to speak. Because we can't talk about anything to do with this.
But we are still speaking, which is also
For now, let's see how this goes.
I think we need to get going, don't we?
Yeah.
So Simon, would you like to kick off, please?
No, it's your channel, ladies first.
Oh, okay. It's my channel, so I should get to choose who starts. However, this is Glory by NoViolet Bulawayo.
Oh, I should say I've given them a challenge to try and sum up each book in a sentence.
I think you should. Okay,
because I have done that on a reading vlog that you'll see on my channel again between shortlist and winner.
Okay, corrupt political regime, animals take over.
Oh, that was good.
Thank you very much.
And how do we want to do it? Do we want to do the pros and cons, or do we reveal and then do the pros and cons?
Oh, I don't mind.
We've not thought about this. Well, no,
I
because
think
if we reveal...
pros and cons and then reveal, because otherwise it might become very obvious.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think mine might anyway.
Okay, so the pros for me were, you know, again, it's very political.
Very political.
I thought that it was really vibrant and lively, and I loved some of the voices in it, of the animals. The cons for me were that it was a little bit overlong, perhaps needed a bit more editing in my view. So I did find sections of it a little bit samey. And I don't think, it's a long time since I read it actually, because I read it as part of the Booker, it was shortlisted for the Booker, wasn't it? And I read it for that, seems quite a while ago now, we did. But I think, are the characters given names?
Yes.
There was something anyway that about the way that they were speaking that started to grate. I think there was a lot of repetition. But Simon might be able to enlighten me about that.
I'm going to do very quick pros and cons because I know that we've got 16 books to get through. So my pros would be that it enlightened me to a period in Zimbabwe's history through this retelling of the politics through these animalistic characters. That leads into my cons, which are, I don't think she needed the animalistic characters, and I don't think it is a retelling of Animal Farm. I think it's a homage to that possibly, but actually donkeys looking at YouTube and tapping with their hooves broke me out a little bit, so that would be my con. Okay,
so are we going to reveal?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to put the book down.
You are. In fact, we could stand it in front.
Camilla, will it not the whole pile?
Nah,
the whole pile come crashing down.
So glory is, for me,
is
3, 2, 1.
No, I've got all of it yet. For me, it is
a no. But I'm glad I read it.
Yes, I'm really glad I read it too.
So sorry, NoViolet Bulawayo.
Yeah, very sorry.
Right, do you want me to see this one?
Yes, please.
So next we have Jennifer Croft's Homesick, which is a story of two sisters, one who becomes very, very ill, and how what follows on from there. That's my sentence review.
Oh, well.
And for me, I love the vignette style. I thought it was in some points heartbreaking. I got very emotionally upset. However, I also found the childlike voice slightly grating on occasion.
That's really interesting, because I would absolutely echo that. One of the big pros for me was the portrayal of sibling love and almost sort of hive mind in places.
Yeah. And
I also really loved the way it forefronted homeschooling and the impact of that. I thought that was, I don't think I've read about that before in fiction.
I love how it plays with its own title.
Yeah, but I did find it a little bit, not gruelling in places, but I did feel sort of, and actually the second half, she seemed to grow up very quickly. I felt the pace of it was strange.
I think the journey of this book is fascinating because it started off being published in Spanish, then it was translated into English and published as a memoir in America, and then got rewritten and published as a novel here. I don't know if that's done it a great service. I think that might have done it a slight disservice, because whilst it's been edited a lot, and maybe that's the vignette style, I think it feels disjointed on occasion, is what I would say. And
I must say, I absolutely loved the paper in this edition.
Oh really?
Yeah, it's got really sort of almost like tracing paper.
Oh, I'll check you out.
No, I did. I loved it.
I love the vignettes for me. The vignettes, I just thought, because not because it means that you're reading a book quicker. Of course. But no, I said not because of that. It's because the pace is right. It's very much that works with a child's brain. I think it's quite. But for me, the voice was slightly cloying. Right. Okay.
Okay. So, do you want to put the book in front? Oh, you have already. So I can't see it. Sorry.
For me, it is a no. But I'm really glad I read it.
Yeah.
That's going to become...
I thought it was strong.
Have the shot of something or a sweet treat every time I say, but I'm glad I read it. Because it's probably happened about 10 times.
So next up, don't you just love this cover? Fire Rush by Jacqueline Crooks. I was very excited to read this, partly because of the cover, look how it matches my outfit. And partly because there was a lot of chat about this online. And I think, I've got to sum it up in a sentence. So,
I didn't like to say, but
1970s, dance culture, subterranean, love story goes wrong. With ghosts and all sorts of other things.
Pros and cons.
Okay, so the pros were the love story was absolutely spellbinding. The scenes in the nightclub, well, it's called the Crypt, isn't it, or something like that. Really, really, I loved the dancing, the grittiness, the music. I thought that was captured brilliantly. I loved the fact that it was set partly in Bristol and the whole sort of connection with slave culture. And actually lots of other pros as well.
What about cons?
Struggling.
That's interesting.
I'm struggling actually to think of cons.
I love this. We're not going to give too much away, but we have.
I know, well, it's really hard, isn't it? The cons for me, I think, probably were that it was a hard read at times because of the subjugation that was happening within it. So that would be the con.
So my pros are very much what you said. I think I was nervous because it's a book about music in a lot of ways, but I totally got behind it. I love the narrative voice through it and the prose. I think it's stunning. It's about something I know little about, and I just love finding out more about the culture. Loved the love story. Loved all of the spooky dooky stuff because I just love all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to say cons. I have no notes. So, do you want to stand it up?
I think that's going to be such a shocker.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to be mind blown with this one.
And from me, it is Kel Surprise. Yes.
I'm so pleased because I had this, but I wouldn't have read it as soon if it hadn't been for that.
No.
So next we have Children of Paradise by Camilla Grudova, and this is a tale of a belated coming of age of a woman who's moved to England from Russia through cinema and the mad characters and shenanigans that ensue in the cinema. And I enjoyed this, and it's been compared to Angela Carter, and I get why. It's got this sort of gothic, sensational, creepy, there's a lot of bodily fluids going on in it. It's very rough and raw. And I was completely beguiled by it. I think it also beautifully depicts what it's like to be an outsider around outsiders.
Yeah.
So you're not even, you can't even be an insider
Which I think
and an
often
outsider.
happens.
Yeah, I think it does. For me, I sometimes felt like I missed things because I didn't know the history of the books that it was, it's always books with me, the films that it was talking about always, although there were certain chapters like whatever happened to Baby Jane and the character Iris comes in, I was like, she's Baby Jane, I totally get it, I can see what she's doing here. But yeah, I thought it was very enjoyable, fun, gritty, daft, bonkers. I didn't get as involved with the characters as I would have liked.
I thought that it was a masterpiece of describing setting. You know, that cinema,
the Paradise
I could draw it, you know, in intimate detail, and not only draw it.
I don't know if I'd want to.
No.
I love the fact there was like doors behind posters and stuff.
It's
you
brilliant.
got lost in there.
And not only that, I could smell it, and I could, you know, it's very, very sensory.
Sometimes, unfortunately, so.
You know, the stickiness, the everything. I found it a little bit repetitive. I found it plot light. I didn't sort of, I don't know. I did like the character of Iris though. And also one of the things that really bugged me as I was reading it was that
she was bugged.
I was bugged because I haven't seen a lot of these films. Perhaps I should have done, I don't know. And I quite often couldn't see the correlation between the chapter title
but that's what I was saying to
and
you.
The chapter content.
Have you seen Whatever Happened to Baby Jane?
No.
Oh, you see, you would totally understand
Yeah,
Iris. But I just said that earlier, is that when I could understand it was great, but when I couldn't, I was like, well, why that title?
I actually felt excluded.
Oh, okay.
It was like being excluded from an in-joke a bit for me.
Okay.
But I think if you love cinema, I can see that you'd find this a really powerful book. So I'm sorry, but I don't know if there's going to be any surprises from me.
Well, I think from both of us it's the same. It's a
no
from me. But I'm glad I read it.
I'm really glad I read it as well. Yeah, absolutely.
And I put them out of order.
So,
oh, we have Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes, which is a retelling of the Medusa myth, a feminist retelling of the Medusa myth where Perseus is a bit of a pillock.
yes.
That's all I'm going to say.
I think that's resounding.
The pros for me of this with the sense of humour, the character particularly of Medusa and the Gorgonion.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that Perseus was a bit of a wally. I thought Athena was amazing in this. I hated her, but I loved her.
Yeah.
And I thought this was Natalie Haynes having a huge amount of fun.
Yes, I did too.
Cons are that I haven't got many because I really love this book. I think it's possible I would have liked it to be longer.
Right, that's
and I would have liked more Medusa.
Yeah. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was an absolute romp for me. I really loved the retelling of the birth of Athene because that's one of my favourite myths, and I've always loved telling that in the classroom. And I loved the way she dealt with that. And I absolutely loved. I know some people have been critical of it, but I absolutely loved the complete lambasting of Perseus. I think he gets everything he deserves in this novel, frankly.
I agree.
I loved the fact that it dealt with some very challenging issues. So there's a lot of abuse. And
there's also, I'm going to say, there's a rape scene in it at the very start, which I just found was so incredibly written as you keep shifting into a different thing. I thought that was one of the best pieces of writing I read last year. Yeah,
and also it does show how mythology and folklore is so important in dealing with difficult societal problems. For me, it had too many characters.
Okay.
There were too many voices. And I don't know whether that was because I was sort of trying to disentangle my knowledge of the...
Maybe that's why I think it was too short.
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, that would be my my criticism of it. I felt I was being moved, shifted around. I felt a bit drunk sometimes. I was like, well, I was here, was I there, was I, where was I? Yeah.
Right, well, so, a yes or a no?
Well, this is interesting.
So for me, very sadly, it's a no.
And I think Simon's going to be very surprised by this, but for me it's a no as well.
I think people will be shocked that both of us is no, because this is a book I utterly love.
I did.
And I'm going to say it was my number 7.
Yeah. I found
was it your number 7 as well?
I found it, yeah. I found it almost impossible to make this decision with about 8 or 9 of them.
No, I didn't.
I found it really, really hard.
I didn't because, and that's, sorry, I said that as if there's not a lot of quality. There's so much quality in this list. However, I think that made it sometimes incredibly difficult, but also I would be happy if pretty much all of these got shortlisted, which I know sounds like a cop-out, but it's totally true.
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, hang on a minute.
Oh, sorry.
It's like you've done the last 2.
Did I do the last 2? I'm so sorry.
It's my channel, and he's bossing me around. Trespasses by Louise Kennedy is next up. So how would I summarise this? Girl in 1970s Belfast, young girl has affair with older man.
Troubles.
The troubles
ensue.
Troubles. It's in the troubles, and troubles ensue.
Sorry, I helped you with that one.
It's quite all right. No, you should have done, but thank you for doing it. So for me, the pros for this were many. I thought it depicted the 1970s brilliantly, and yes, I can remember them. I thought the period detail was spot on. I absolutely loved, what was her name? I thought I'd never forget her name. What's she called?
Kushla.
Kushla, that's right. I absolutely loved Kushla as a character. I loved, she's a primary school teacher. I loved the way her relationships with the children didn't end at the school gates. And you know how difficult it is to switch off from what's going on in the classroom, you know, taking the job home, as it were. I think it conveyed the tension, the absolute tension of the Troubles really well, and the way that nobody, there isn't a single person who, when there's civil war, there is not a single person who is not impacted by, I don't like impacted as a verb, sorry, by the by the violence around them, and I think it did that brilliantly. Sorry, don't stop giggling at me.
She's grammar policing herself.
I am. The only con I have actually is that I didn't fully understand the attraction for the older man. I didn't. It needed explaining to me better. Maybe I'm a bit dim, but that's my little slight niggle with it. But it is a very slight niggle. Simon.
I'm going to do very quick pros and cons on this one. So the pros were that I thought I wasn't going to enjoy it, and I really did. I was actually least looking forward to this one because I've read a few books about the Troubles and I still don't always understand it. However, I did go out to Belfast and Northern Ireland last year and got to learn a lot more about it, but this book increased my knowledge of that. I completely fell in love with the writing. I think the writing is absolutely stunning. And I thought the relationship, and you're kind of thinking, oh please Pusher, don't do this, or don't, you know, there's a lot of that, but you're with her at the same time. And you've also, there's something about her that makes you remember your own foibles or the times you've done daft things, which is also very
endearing.
Well, I guess it makes you feel like you're in that, you understand the character or relate to the character, and I thought that Louise Kennedy did that really well. My cons, there weren't really very many for me, because I think actually with the Troubles, I thought what was great about it was she really kind of deftly explains it, so I feel like I understand it way more. Although the best ever description of the Troubles I've been given is by a coach driver when I was doing the Giant's Causeway. He just put it so brilliantly.
What did he say? I don't know.
I can't go. I'm not going.
Oh, I thought you were going to do it in your best Irish. This is going to be far too.
I'm not going to dare do that. That would make this video far too long, because it still took a while because it is complicated. Interestingly, I totally got the attraction. Totally got it.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
I totally got it. What I didn't get sometimes, I love the mother relationship. Oh, there's loads. I don't really have any cons, so I'm kind of giving away what's about to come.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, ready?
So,
steady.
For me, it's a yes.
For me, it's a no.
Oh, get out of town.
And that's, you know, on another year. I know, I really struggled. Like I say, I've really, really struggled to sort this list. I'm really pleased that you chose that.
You can do this. Do you know what? I'm so shocked, because I literally was dreading picking it up, and then I started it and I was like, oh my god, this woman's writing is just next level.
Yeah.
It felt like watching a really gritty Doris Day movie.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Anyway, you're doing that one, because I did
doing
two.
this one, am I?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did two and I got told off. That means you did that one as well.
This is probably the heftiest of all the long listed. I was going to say shortlisted.
I will say the colour that I'm wearing has nothing to do with this, by the way.
So this is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. So if I had to sum it up in a sentence, I would say it's the story of a young man who grows up in extremely difficult circumstances in America
1990s.
In the 1990s, and falls victim to the prescription drug crisis.
Opioid crisis, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a take on David Copperfield. I think that was her inspiration, but I don't think it has, you don't have to have read David Copperfield or know anything about it to enjoy this novel.
I'd only seen the movie. But I've seen the latest
David
Copperfield.
I did, and I fell asleep in it, and it was. I know I did love it, but I was just really tired.
Those
I want to see it again. And it did inspire me to. I've been listening to David Copperfield on audio as well, because I was trying to sort of second guess the bits that she'd taken from it. I think there are loads and loads of pros to this book. I think it's incredibly brave for her to write it. I think it's overtly political. I think she's very critical of American society, and I love the message that these people who are the victims of this kind of crisis are the responsibility of every single citizen. And you know, turning a blind eye is happening all over the place and shouldn't be. Nobody, it's a bit like the Louise Kennedy thing, that in a situation like this, nobody wins. So I found it really, really compelling, and I thought the characterisation was fascinating. I found it funny and wry and traumatic, and it took me through the whole gamut of emotions. I had a slight slump in the middle, but I think maybe that was because I was trying to read it perhaps more quickly than you know, I wanted to do it justice, and yeah, I didn't want to kind of rush through it. Simon, over to you.
So I don't like Dickens, so was not looking forward to this. I'd also had a bit of a bad relationship with Kingsolver because I tried to read the Lacuna and really didn't get on with that, which is the previous Women's Prize winner. So I was very nervous about this one, and this is going to be interesting because you don't know, we haven't done the slicing yet.
I know.
But I really fell in love with the writing, and I love Demon Copperhead as a character. I thought it was gripping, propulsive, really important, even though it was about the 1990s, it could actually stand now. Well, I love the fact it was the 1990s because Spice Girls Girl Power, and they get mentioned a few times actually, so I was thrilled with that. The only slight con I had with it was I found it a bit repetitive. So certain things, I felt like occasionally we were being bashed over the head with the same moralistic point of view. Although I will say Kingsolver is not moralistic overall.
The tone isn't.
Yeah, and I think what I really thought was brilliant was that Demon Copperhead will directly address you at certain points. The only sometimes thing is I thought his narration was a bit older than he really was.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that was a little
I
thing.
didn't feel that.
So there we go, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, okay.
Now,
so,
what's going to happen
this
here?
Is interesting. So, Demon Copperhead. Is it a no, a yes or a no? Well, from me, it was a, off we go, 1, 2, 3.
Yes!
Oh my God, we're in tune.
No, we're not.
A little bit.
No, we're not.
We are a little bit.
Maybe.
Well,
right.
Simon.
So, Cursed Bread by Sophie Mackintosh is next, and this was one of the ones that I was most looking forward to because it's based on the factual account of a town that is poisoned in France, and nobody really knew why, and it was a bit of a mystery, so Sophie Mackintosh writes the story of what happened. I have to say, and this is going to totally give away what I think, I was really disappointed in this book, like hugely. It's actually about a woman who is kind of obsessed with a married couple who move into the town and what follows on from there, which I thought interesting. I found it really repetitive. I found it a bit boring. And even when this freaky shizzle started to happen, which I was so excited for, I just found it underwhelming. And I'm sad to say this because I want to love Sophie Mackintosh's books. This is the second one I've read and I've wanted to love, and I haven't loved it. You obviously loved it because you're smiling.
I am grinning, really grinning. I absolutely love it.
So you're just saying we're on the same page?
No, I think the writing is brilliant. I think the characters are sharp and intriguing, and I just love the whole butcher, grocer, baker. I was there, I'm in France.
I will say, the baker was fit. That was what I kept coming away from thinking.
And I also love the
when he was doing the dough.
The whole sense of, what I think she recreates brilliantly is the whole sense of being in a room with people but not knowing what they're thinking and trying to kind of second guess what they're thinking. I thought she did that really,
second
really...
guess what I'm thinking?
No. Yeah, shut up.
No, not shut up.
I just inhaled it, like you like to say. I really, really loved it. So you know what's coming, I think.
Cursed boring.
Well,
even the bonfire scene couldn't bring it
I
alive
loved it.
for me. Anyway, so let's guess. So no.
So yes from me.
So, and I feel bad, like Sophie Mackintosh, great writer. She's just been announced as one of the Granta top new writers because they brought that back. But I love the cover didn't. Oh, you can do that one. Sorry, it's your turn.
Okay. So, The Dog of the North by Elizabeth McKenzie. So this is quite different in tone, isn't it? I think from all the others. It's a kind of well, I think it is. I think it's quite a comic romp.
It is, but I think there's other comic books in here.
Yes. Okay. So it's about a woman who is deciding to separate from her husband, and she kind of has nowhere to go, and she ends up sleeping in this office with, what's he called?
That farty old man.
The farty old man behind the desk, who has a van which she ends up travelling around.
She goes to see her grandmother, doesn't she?
Yeah, that's right. The character of her grandmother is just absolutely hilarious.
And who I loved as much as the grandmother in Demon Copperhead.
Yes, and they had similar, in some ways, had quite similar qualities. Yeah. So I, in terms of pros and cons, I thought it was very, very funny. I really liked the fact that it was quite different to anything I've read recently. In fact, it reminded me a bit of A.M. Holmes.
Oh, interesting.
But I didn't find it particularly cohesive, and actually I got bored of it. I know, I did. I got bored of it towards the end.
And yet she loved Curse Boring.
I know, it's interesting, isn't it? But I didn't find Curse Boring.
I didn't really find it boring. I didn't really
so that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Okay, my pros are that, well, I was nervous because funny books don't make me laugh. This did make me laugh quite a lot. Sometimes I felt there was a few too many jokes and it was trying a little bit hard to be comical. And actually there was a point where I was so tempted to DNF it early on because I was like, I think this is just somebody writing, it's making up as they go along, that's kind of the whole point, but it felt a bit overly like that.
I felt
and
that.
Where can I pop a gag into that? Where can I squeeze a joke? And then when they go to the grandmother's and clear her house out and something is discovered, I was like, oh my God, I got to read on. Yeah. And it really pushed me through. I agree with you that I didn't find it completely cohesive, but that's because I think it goes back to what I was saying about, I felt like this was a writer who was writing it as they were writing it, which I know is what writers do, but hopefully you all know what I mean, where it's a bit like, fly by the seat of my pants, I'll just go wherever. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm glad.
Yes, I'm glad I've read it. Oh, I should have said, I'm glad I've read this too.
I don't think you are.
I gave it a second chance.
I don't believe you.
So, is this going to be on our personal shortlist?
No.
But I'm glad I read it.
I'm glad I've read it too soon.
Black Butterflies by Priscilla Morris, which Mum and I have done a sort of parallel read on Mum's channel, well, which we're on right now. So I was about to link it over there and I don't need to. This is set in the 1990s when Sarajevo becomes,
under siege.
Under siege. I was going to say sieged, but under siege during the war. And what the pros for this, for me, are that I think the way she writes how war can happen at any minute, which is kind of spooky considering they did that phone weird test today, and I was thinking about that a bit afterwards.
Yeah.
And war can happen at any minute, even though things, tensions build, but sometimes it's that sudden one moment where it switches, how your world can be overthrown, and then how you have to carry on, like going to work and stuff while there's snipers and while there's bombs going off, which I thought everyone would just stop working. It really don't want to use that term. It really expanded my thoughts on that. I also thought the way she shows how normal something can become so quickly. I thought the way she looks at how we find love in odd, surprising ways, really interesting. Didn't love the art in it, but I thought it was an incredible debut novel. Sorry, pros and cons, there we go.
No, thank you. Why are you apologising?
Your pros or cons?
I
think you love this.
I do love it. I really love it. I mean, it's a place that I have an affection for. It's a period of history that I was very aware of as it was happening. It's making me emotional talking about it now. I really don't know why. I loved, I mean, there was so much I loved about it. I loved her character. I loved the love. There's lots of different types of love in this novel. I particularly loved the relationship. I don't think I talked about this actually when I was recording it, but I really loved the relationship she had with the young girl and the scenes of them painting together. I just found that incredibly powerful because I think play, the power of play is so important, and I think I worry about it dying out in society, and there they are in this war-torn place, and yet they're kind of playing together and being creative. I could go on for ages. I think my views are probably quite clear. I can't really I don't want to give it any cons, except that it really upsets me to talk about it.
So, I can guess what it is from you.
Yeah, but I can't
Can you guess what it is from me?
Yeah.
Oh. It's a no from me.
Yeah.
With regret.
It is a yes from me.
With regret, because I did everything I said about what this book does is so brilliant. I really want to talk to you about the relationship that builds in this because I've got lots of thoughts on it. But for me, the art stuff, it broke it for me a little bit.
Such a shame. Okay, so then we have, oh gosh, it's heavy.
Oh, she's gone.
The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell, which has been much awaited by me. I have to be absolutely honest, I think probably of all the genres, my favourite is historical fiction. And this is, okay, in a sentence, it's the 1500s and young noblewoman in Florence is married to older duke, very wealthy, slightly concerning.
Rumour is, because it's based on historical fact, isn't it?
It's based on, I think it's based on My Last Duchess, the poem by Robert Browning, which I know very well and absolutely adore. I think she riffs around that beautifully, but I don't think you have to know it. She quotes from the poem at the beginning, but I don't think you have to know it. And I just, well, the tiger. I mean, right from the beginning, the tiger.
Right from the beginning, the
it's not quite there
for me, just like the characters and
and
pros and cons.
So, well, I'm struggling with cons. I would say the only con perhaps I would have is that sometimes I'm back in Hamnet when I'm reading it.
That's interesting.
I think it's something to do with the way she uses tenses. And I actually love it because she writes quite often in the present or even the future. And that doesn't happen a lot, I don't think, in fiction, contemporary fiction. And I think that's what makes it very, very immediate. And I think maybe the only con for me is that this is, Hamnet is so in my bones now because the style is similar. And we're seeing it through the eyes, I don't know, the narrative viewpoint in some ways is similar. That's the only con I've got. Occasionally I felt I was back in Hamnet, but that was quite nice as well.
See, I never felt that. That's really interesting. So for me, prose, her writing, I just love it. And I think this is exceptionally done. I was beguiled with it straight away. I think the narration and the characters are phenomenal. I think she does some really interesting things around faction, because I believe she based it on a painting that she's seen of somebody Medici, which is the name of the character, but it's a long time since I read it because I read it last summer. And if this gets shortlisted, I will read it again because it has been so long since I read it. But for me, I just found it beautiful and hypnotic again. There's something about the way she's writing. I feel like she's found a new sort of something. I can't quite get. The only con for me is the price of the book really irritates me because I just think £25 and the print is really big inside.
Yes.
So that's just my only con.
But for somebody like me, you see, I think books used to be, the print used to be much more like this. This reminds me of books that we used to get from the library in the old days. And for somebody like me with my eyesight, I loved this. I loved the page size and so on, because I know I'd heard you talk about it.
But still,
what annoys me is the way that the name. Anyway,
we're on 40 minutes.
Sorry.
Right,
yes,
there's this one. So, is it a yes or a no? From me, it's a yes. Right, we've got 5 more and we're on 40 minutes.
Right, come on,
Come on then. Right, so I'm a fan by Sheena Patel. I am a fan. This is 3 vignettes. What it's like to be a woman of colour in Britain today on Instagram having an affair and becoming obsessed with the other woman the man you're having an affair with is having an affair with. Also, should be required reading for anyone who wants to go on Instagram. For me, the pros, I feel like I said, I just felt this looks at social media so astutely in a very piercing, sometimes quite uncomfortable, sometimes quite condemning way. I like the fact the character's quite flinty and unlikable, because again it shows that can happen to, you know, everyone can get, can I say shat on your channel?
Yes, you can.
And I raced through it. I thought it was funny, I thought it was dark, I thought it was gritty, flinty, bit mardy, bit of me.
I really enjoyed it, I can't lie. I thought it really educated me about certain things, and things that I hadn't really thought about before, like the way she sort of talks about nature and, you know, even the sort of the flora and fauna in this country aren't really kind of hers. And I thought that was a brilliant, you know, there's some ways in which she describes alienation so absolutely brilliantly.
An obsession.
And I don't want to be controversial when I say what I'm about to say in terms of cons. But what are you doing?
I'm hiding from your controversy.
No, don't hide. I don't want to appear unsympathetic to people who are in relationships where they're misled or they're abused or they're whatever. But I found this really difficult to read because I just wanted to kind of give her a good talking to and say, stop obsessing about, you know, these people. And I found that really hard.
That's so interesting.
So I got angry with her. I wanted.
Oh, so did I. I was a
yeah,
bit like, that's like Queenie by
yeah, very much so.
Yeah, I just
very
really,
much so.
really peed off.
But I think in Queenie's case, and that's really interesting comparison, because I think in Queenie's case there were so many more likeable qualities in her. And that's awful. I actually found it easier to spectate on.
I think that's what's so clever.
Yeah,
about
it is. It's really clever.
Yeah.
But I mean, any book that provokes a reaction. It's like when I'm teaching the kids to write. I said that you've got to decide how you want your readers to feel. Because if they don't feel anything, there's no point. And I found it fascinating. So
it's a yes from me.
No from me, but I am incredibly glad I read it.
Next up, we have Pod, Mum.
By Laline Paull. So basically, dolphins swimming around in lots of murky water. A real sort of excoriating take on, thank you very much. Take on what man is doing to our environment. Very clever, I realise with hindsight, because I am still swimming around in that murky water with those dolphins. But I think for me there were a lot of cons as well. It got a bit Finding Nemo for me at times.
Finding Nemo, but porn.
Yeah, lots of sex in it.
My one word definition of this would be the sea sex book. That's effing brutal.
Yeah, absolutely it is. It's full of brutality and separation and bleak. It didn't, you know, the tone didn't vary very much, or the pace for me. But again, it's really stayed with me in a way that I didn't expect it to. Simon.
So I was really excited for this one because I love Laline Paull's Bees, and this is told through the voice of Ia, a dolphin who has, well, she can't hear properly, she has hearing, which I think actually was one of the things that irritated me, not that she had a hearing problem, but the fact that I felt like it was there just to be there. And I felt like this book tries to deal with every single issue that humanity has through dolphins, which in some ways works brilliantly, particularly around pollution, the sea, climate change, all those things that we're doing. I found it unrelentingly bleak. There are a couple of moments of joy within it. There's just so much sex as well, which I couldn't quite work out what she was trying to say through that. That was something that...
Is it just to do with...
the dolphins are horny? I don't know.
No, I just think basic instinct.
Yeah, maybe. But for me, that was kind of a bit of a problem. I think this is a book where I'm very much on the fence about it, because I think some of it and what it's trying to do is absolutely incredible. And I think, like you said, I am still swimming around with it, thinking about it. So. And the talking dolphin didn't actually bother me too much. Apart from there was a dolphin called Google, which really annoyed me because I just thought it was a stupid name. and that can break a book for some people, and I thought that was a bit... Also, I thought she was trying to do something with that, which I wasn't too sure about, because he was the techie dolphin, as it were. So I'm really... Some days I think it's absolute genius, and other days I think, you know, this book is bleak and depressing, and I've read A Little Life, which I love. So yeah, I'm very torn on this one, but I think she is a phenomenal writer. So,
it's a no
from me, but I really got to read it, and it's reminded me, I need to read her second one, I don't know why I haven't. So, oh no, hang on, down there. And that moved. So, oh, it's me. It's me. Wandering Souls by Cecile Penn is a heartbreaking tale of a family leaving Vietnam to find sanctuary and ending up in Thatcher's Britain and following on from there until pretty much now. This prose to me made me cry like a baby because I was so invested in it quite often. I think it is very well written in parts. I have issues in some parts which we'll come to. I thought it gave me such a horrifying insight into Thatcher's attitude towards these people, which is horrifically very like what we're going through now, and makes me feel upset to think about. See, this book is so interesting because in some ways it chokes me up. I feel
it's really political again, but
also sometimes it feels like journalism, and there's a bit of a distance sometimes. So there's a certain bit in a font which is a generation down that I actually found a little bit broke me away. And
do you think that's deliberate though?
No, not really.
Voice of the writer.
I don't. Maybe. But it broke it for me, so or on occasion that broke it for me. And actually I wanted to spend, because I think it's no spoilers to say, at the very beginning, the family take two journeys. One set of the family survive and one set don't. And that instantly makes me feel really sad, because the way she writes from the perspective of a child ghost shouldn't have made me as emotional as it did, but it absolutely, well, it should, because it did. But at the same time, I would then be broken away from it with these sort of miniature bits which were very almost...
I know exactly what you're saying, because those bits, I would put that originally as a con, and then that grew on me.
Where have they gone?
I was like,
oh, don't look!
I can't see. That grew on me as I progressed through the novel. For me, this was one that was a very, very tough choice. I found it incredibly poignant. Again, I remember, you know, the whole Vietnamese boat people thing, and I don't mean to trivialise it by calling it a thing, and I think the way that it really, really highlights the plight of refugees, immigrants, whatever you want to call these people, these groups of people, coming over to Britain and being expected to live in completely inappropriate places. I really like the honesty and the openness of it, and I think we don't, you know, I think there should be more fiction about these kinds of, you know, things.
This I would like to be on the curriculum. I think it's just so good in so many ways, but it did sometimes break me. So, for me, sadly it's a no. And
for me it's a reluctant no again, and I keep saying this, but I think on other years that would have been easily in, you know, my shortlist.
And I will think about it often, and it does, that has such, it's interesting, that has the effect that Black Butterflies I think has for you or me. So for me to not put that through is a really, really hard decision. Right, Mum, Bandit Queens.
Okay, Bandit Queens. Wow, how do you sum this up in a sentence? Woman living in Indian village.
That's slightly out of focus.
I don't know, don't think so. Woman living in Indian village is assumed to have murdered her husband. He has not been seen for 5 years. Therefore, she's been alienated apparently by all her friends and all the other women in the village. However, one of them turns to her for help because she wants to get rid of her own husband. And the plot unfolds. The prose for me, it's told with such wit. I loved the pace of it. I loved the dialogue. I could walk around that village. I love the characters. I love the dog. At one point, she has a. I don't want to spoil the plot, but she develops this relationship with her. I keep saying she, and I can't remember the woman's name. That's terrible. Honestly, I worry.
It's on the inside. Gita. I don't know why I couldn't remember.
And I loved all the women. I thought the way that it's Parini, isn't it? Yeah, the way that Parini Shroff writes about women's attitudes towards each other, the way they talk to each other, the way they think about each other was brilliant. I liked the whole thing about the Bandit Queen, and I was really, really delighted to find that she had really existed as a character. So the Bandit Queen is a woman from sort of apparently Indian folklore in the way that Gita thinks about it.
She was a real woman.
Yes, well, that's what I'm just saying. Yeah, so I was really pleased to find out that she did really exist. But Gita kind of partly models herself on her and admires her, and so there's that sort of folkloric type thread through the plot. Cons. The only con I can think of is that at one point, I think I had a slight slump when I thought it was getting a little bit samey, and then there was a few sensational plot twists. So I think my attention kind of slipped very briefly, and then bam, I was back. Yeah, Simon.
So pros for me, I think Parini was a bit of a genius because, and I'm going to be frank, this is my favourite book on the long list. Sorry if that's a spoiler to you all, but I just absolutely love this. I thought that for me there's a really big important theme at the heart of this book, and that is the bad things that many men do to women, but also that they don't. So what I think is really funny is there's one scene, and I don't want to give too much away, but I think this highlights how brilliant she is, because it could come across as quite a man-hating book. And there's one point where there's a group of wives together and she's like, what about you? Do you want your husband killed? And it was like, he snores a bit, but he's all right. And it's just things like that. And the wit in here is so brilliant. But also, it's incredibly hard. Like, some of the subject matter in here is so hard. And why I think she's a particular genius is she manages to look at some of the darkest sides of human beings and how they behave and make it not light-hearted, that's not right. She uses comedy to make the darker all the darker, but also she knows exactly when to make you laugh at the right point. She also, when you're laughing, knows when to pull the rug under your carpet and say, well, actually, no, this is awful. I thought she did that brilliantly as well. I think the way she writes about women coming together and empowering them, how it's very much, I feel, a book about miscommunication and communication. And although, when she said she was 35, I thought, bloody hell, they've written her all off. She's like, they treat her like the old witch down the road, and she's only 35. But also, I thought it was a fascinating look at castes. Yes. And that came to the fore more and more as I read it. I thought the characters were brilliant. There were some, not what could be seen as stereotypical characters, but she gave them her own spin. I just honestly thought, I didn't have a moment where
There's one scene in this involving a gun, which is so implausible. In fact, I don't think I've read anything like it in a novel before. I've seen things like it in film, and I think this would make a fantastic series or film on TV. I think Netflix or whoever needs to grab this quick. But you know, there are parts of it that are actually kind of chase scene-y, cinematic-y in scope.
There is the only thing I would say, that scene with the gun, if it's the same one, I think that for me went on a little bit too long, and also sometimes there was too much dialogue and I got confused who was who. And I'm talking towards Dave Newman.
I think it is.
But I did really enjoy it. Like I just said, it's my favourite book, but if I've got to pick a con, it's that sometimes there were too many characters involved in the scene. I was like, hang on, here's what's going on with that. But that was at the very end. And I also thought just the way she has made me want to go and find out about the Bandit Queen. It's just brilliant to see it. I thought it was great. So
I think we know what you're going to say, Simon.
For me, it's a yes.
And for me, it's a yes.
Hooray! So, last up, Memphis.
Yes.
Rick.
In a sentence, Simon, in a sentence.
This is about 3 generations of women in Memphis who have been through horrific things at the hands of men, and this book looks at their experiences but also looks at why the men behave how they do.
Prose?
Prose, I just couldn't stop reading it.
Yeah,
I thought it was
addictive.
so brilliantly written. I thought it was absolutely addictive. I thought the characters were really layered. I thought the way she deals with trauma was really interesting because 3 generations deal with it very differently, either because they're different people, which I don't think often gets looked at. A lot of the time it'll be, oh, it's their generation, they behave that way. This is about the people who've been through what they've been through and how that they, you know, react to it in a myriad of ways. I thought the way that we look at the perpetrators of what has been done to these women was really interesting. I say interesting because I sometimes, and it's the only mild con I had, felt she was trying to forgive them, and I think some of the things they did were not forgivable. They might have been not even understandable. She cleverly shows you why these people do what they do, but I felt she was trying to forgive, and I want to just hear it without any moral tone. And sometimes I found it moralistic in that sense, oddly.
Cons?
That was my
That's
comment.
your con. Yeah, no, I romped through it too. It's a while since I read it, so I'm just trying to sort of tune back in. One thing that surprises me is there's art in this book.
Yeah, it didn't bother me. But this is the thing, if art is something I don't love in books, but again, that to me shows the power of a writer. And the art in here I could see. I couldn't see the art in Black Butterflies.
Okay.
So that is...
You couldn't visualise it?
No.
Right,
So that to me, it's like music in something. If I can't hear the music, I could hear the music in Fire Rush.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I think... yeah, I loved the characters. I would completely echo what Simon's saying about it perhaps being not exactly apologetic, but sort of almost
a little bit apologetic.
And there were times when I felt that I was consciously being asked to think about a specific theme. Do you know, like it was almost not being rammed down my throat, that's not fair, but I would kind of slip out the book a little bit because I thought, oh yeah, there's a message here. But I absolutely loved it.
My only other con-ish that I might have is that I found the fact they were all a family who'd been through these 3 traumatic things a little bit, like if it had been friends, it might have been more plausible.
I think that's really
know.
hard to say.
I know.
I love the fact it brought Memphis to life for me as well.
Yeah,
as a
but for me, like when I started reading this I just couldn't stop. Like that, it has got this addictive
really
nature to it. So for me, it's a no.
And it's a no from me, but again, on another year, may well not be. And I think this has been...
I just lied. This was my number 7.
Ah, okay.
Because I thought, yeah, it was just so compelling. So hang on, which ones have we got in common now? We both said yes to the Bandit Queens.
We did.
We didn't say yes to that one.
I said yes to that one.
We both said yes to that.
We did.
You said yes to that.
I did.
No. You said yes to
I did.
that. That.
Oh.
I said yes to that.
Yeah.
No. No.
Both said yes to that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So this year we have...
We're more in tune than we've ever been.
4 in common.
I think 3's been the most, hasn't it?
There we go. They're just
Before.
there.
Yeah.
And then we have 4 that we'd have to fight over, which we might do on my channel. So if you've not had enough of almost an hour of us here,
Dear.
head over to my channel where we have deathmatch to create the actual Savage shortlist. So what do you think? I think that's quite interesting.
I think that's really interesting. Yeah.
I already know what the shortlist of ours will be though, I think.
Yes, I think I do too. Shall we do it?
Yeah, should we just do it now? I was going to say let's do it on my channel, but it's not actually. People have had enough.
I think
I would compromise getting rid of that.
And I think I would compromise getting rid of that. So I think that's what our combined
shortlist would be.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's interesting.
It's very interesting.
So there we go. And you don't head to my channel right now because there's no point. Because that video isn't going to happen that I mentioned. So do head to it tomorrow morning. as we will have our reaction to the shortlist, because I have an email on my phone I have not opened that has the actual shortlist in it, and we're going to respond to that.
Indeed.
It's your channel.
Sorry, I'm just like, I've got so much to think about now. It's marvellous. Anyway, thank you so much, Simon, for reading this with me once again. Or at least I think it's the other way around. I think it started off as me reading it with you, but it's lovely, and thank you.
Now it's 50-50.
Yeah, exactly, and that feels really nice.
Sometimes a bit more 64.
Is that what you think, viewers? So yeah, no, as I say, I just absolutely love. We've always loved talking about books together, but this is just an absolute joy every year.
I just want to say huge thanks to the Women's Prize, because I think the team are amazing. They very kindly send them all the books, and also like this is an amazing long list. Like, if you want to read whatever the shortlist is, once we know what it is, do. If you want to read our shortlist, obviously read that. But I would say, for the reasons that we've discussed, read all of them at some point.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us once again. And I can't wait to find out what the real, genuine shortlist is. Bye from me.
Bye! Oh no, hang on. Bye!